What's up, everybody? P69 1000. Long time no see. I took a little break. I had a death in the family, so I stepped away from everything for a while, a good long time. My dad passed away. My dad was my best friend, but I know he's in a better place now. So, yeah. So I'm back, and we are going to have some fun, and we're going to make a fun video tonight. I made a video a few years ago about Sardo, and all the episodes he was in Are You Afraid of the Dark? And him and Vink were the only two reoccurring characters in the original Are You Afraid of the Dark seasons. So I was like, you know what? Let's do a Dr. Vink video. That's Vink with a va. And he's not a nutbag. But yeah, like I said, Dr. Vink was the only other reoccurring character besides Sardo in the series, and we actually see that he was in 4 episodes: the Tell the Phantom Cab, the Tell the Midnight Madness, the Tell of the Dangerous Soup, and the Tale of Cutler's Treasure. So, the Tell the Phantom Cab was actually the very first episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And it introduced the Midnight Society, but it also introduced Frank. Now, Frank had to tell a good story so that he could get into the Midnight Society. And the Tell the Phantom Cab, I think, was an amazing story. Probably one of Frank's best stories. So, on the Tell the Phantom Cab, we see that Danny Crocker and his little brother Buzz don't really get along. Danny is older than Buzz. He's bigger. He's taller. Good-looking guy. Buzz is kind of like a younger, I don't know, nerdy type guy. But he's trying to impress his older brother. So, to try to impress Denny, he tries to take him out to the woods and prove that they can survive in the woods. He can help them survive in the woods. But it all goes wrong. His compass messes up and everything just goes the wrong way. Not as Max planned. Or not as Buzz planned, I'm sorry. And so eventually they're lost in the woods. It's getting cold. And this random guy just all of a sudden shows up to save them in the woods. And his name is Flynn. They think he's there to save them, but he's actually just there to ask questions. Because he's like, hey, do you kids need help? And he's acting really weird, like really creepy. Because in real life, if you were to walk up to somebody lost in the woods, especially two teenagers, you're going to help them, right? Well, not Flynn. Flynn is very weird. He's like, I can't help you, but I'm going to take you to a place where people can help you, or somebody can possibly help you. So he winds up taking them to this cabin in the middle of the woods, the middle of nowhere. And Flynn eventually warns them not to ask the doctor for help unless they desperately need it. Now that's ominous. That's the first sign that something's weird, right? So the brothers go and they knock on the cabin door, and Dr. Vink opens the door. And in Dr. Vink's cabin, a lot of weird stuff is going on. We see brains in a jar. We see hands in a jar. Like, we see all types of weird stuff is happening in Dr. Vink's cabin, right? And so he basically tells them he can help them if they can solve his riddles. He's got 2 riddles for them. The first one is, how far can you go into the woods? Now, Buzz is able to answer this riddle and says halfway. You can only go halfway into the woods, because if you go the other half, you're going out of the woods. You're technically exiting the woods at that point. He gets that one right. And Vink asks him another riddle. He says, what's weightless, can be seen by the naked eye, and if put in a barrel, can make it lighter? Well, Buzz doesn't get that one at first. So Dr. Vink kicks him out. Now, um, the kids are pissed off. They want to go home. You know what I'm saying? Well, Flynn shows up, the same guy that was in the woods with them earlier, driving a taxi cab. And he lets them in the cab. What you're thinking at that time, bro, why didn't you just, if you had a cab this whole time, why in the hell didn't you just take them home? You know what I'm saying? Or at least take them to the city. So eventually they get to talking to Flynn. It turns out Flynn is actually a ghost. He died. And those kids are about to die too, because he's doomed to keep hitting and crashing into the same tree he has always been crashing into since the 60s. So they're panicking, and Buzz is trying to figure out this riddle. Finally, he gets it. You know, what's weightless can be seen by the naked eye, and if put in a barrel, it'll make it lighter. A hole! A hole! As soon as he answers the question, or the riddle, the taxi cab disappears, and the two boys are saved. And then finally the police, a state trooper shows up, or a park ranger maybe, and he shows up and he says, we've been looking all over for you kids. And the story ends with the kids get home safe, but Dr. Vink's cabin was never found. So yeah, that was a good introduction to Are You Afraid of the Dark, and also to Dr. Vink. So the next episode Dr. Vink was in was The Tale of the Midnight Madness. Now the story takes place inside of a movie theater called the Rialto. Now the Rialto is a very old-fashioned movie theater. It's known for playing like classic black and white movies and stuff like that, but it has very poor business. Actually, it only has one old lady that always comes in and watches just black and white movies. And she doesn't seem to be very impressed by these movies either. So Pete, who is basically our hero of this story, always asks the woman if she enjoys the show, and she always just kind of blows him off, you know. Well, he actually has a crush on his coworker, Katie. Well, the business is going down. The theater's probably going to close until one man shows up. Now, Pete does everything he can do to try to save the movie theater. He's going out, he's putting posters up, flyers up, telling people, save the Rialto, please. And doing the best he can do, right? Now, he's only a teenager, by the way. He's still going to school. So going to school and working a part-time job where you're trying to save a movie theater, I got to give you props on that, my man. That's respectful. That's very respectful. I respect it. But unfortunately, he can't drum up enough business to save the Rialto until one night a man knocks on the Rialto door. You guessed it. It's Dr. Vink with a va. And he's not a nutbag. So he comes in. He basically tells him, you play one of my movies just one night a week, and it will save this place. It'll bring business in. And all I ask is that you play one of my movies one night a week for the rest of the Rialto's life. And that's all Dr. Vink wanted. So the manager of the Rialto eventually says, okay, this guy's crazy, but you know what, fine. I accept your deal. Not thinking that he would actually be able to save the theater with some old black and white movie. What they didn't realize was Dr. Vink's movies brought the monsters to life. And in his movie, the vampire wins. So they play the movie of this vampire and this vampire hunter trying to save the damsel in distress. He's trying to kill the vampire. The sun come up in the window, but unfortunately, it fails. The vampire kills him before that happens. But then something unexpected happens. The vampire steps through the movie screen. Okay? So the vampire is basically stalking them. He's tracking them through the movie theater. And they're trying to think. Pete's got to think on his feet. Like, what can I do to stop this guy? And then he starts thinking about it. I've got to go into the movie, and I've got to bring the vampire back into the movie and defeat him. Eventually, that's what Pete does. Now, Pete's in the movie theater and he's trying to drag the coffin into the sunlight, and the vampire knows what he's doing, so he's running towards the movie screen to try to stop Pete from destroying his coffin. And Kate says, now that he's in there, I'm going to cut the film off. And Pete says, no, don't do that. I'll be stuck in the movie forever. And eventually Pete defeats the vampire. So Pete's the hero, and he escapes out of the screen, comes back to reality, and they shut the movie off. All of a sudden, Vink shows up, and he's like, I have plenty more movies where that came from, and I just bought this theater, so I'll be playing them anytime I like. And then he gives off this mad laugh. And so that was a great story too. Dr. Vink, you can definitely tell a lot of differences between Dr. Vink and Sardo. Sardo's a good dude. He means well, he tries to do right, but he's not really a magical person, even though he tries to be. Dr. Vink is definitely magical, but he's like evil magic. Definitely a huge difference between these guys. So the next episode that Vink was in was The Tale of the Dangerous Soup. And in this episode, we see that Dr. Vink is trying his hand at being a gourmet chef. And apparently, everybody loves his cooking. It's funny to note that our main character in this episode is Nona Walker, played by a very young Neve Campbell, or Nev Campbell rather. And so they start realizing something's weird in this restaurant, and people are leaving. Employees are always leaving, but people love the soup. People only want the soup. They really won't order anything else, and they're spending insane amounts of money. Actually, it's $100 for a bowl of soup. And the restaurant is always packed every night. This is weird. People are thinking, how good can your soup really be, right? So anyway, Nona goes on realizing that people keep quitting, and things are getting stranger and stranger. Things weren't adding up there until this young man showed up looking for a job. Now, his name is Reed. And Dr. Vink kind of tries to intimidate Reed, but Reed isn't really having it. Reed's basically like, look, you don't scare me. I'm not afraid of you. I don't have any fears. Dr. Vink says, good. And then right then, something weird is going on. So Dr. Vink, it turns out, has this room, this big refrigerator room, and he locks people in it. And this gargoyle, little statue of a gargoyle like demon, pops out. And the gargoyle knows what scares you. And it turns out when it scares you, that fear is what actually makes the soup taste so good, because the fear comes out into like this line that's connected to him, and it drips. It's like a green drip into a vat, and that's what Dr. Vink has been putting in the soup. That's why everybody loves the soup, is because it has that little tiny taste of fear that we all need as human beings to really survive and amp up our feelings and our adrenaline. That's why everybody loves the soup. Well, Reed basically tells Vink, that's enough. Leave her alone. Well, Vink won't open the door, so Reed opens the door, and Vink's like, no, don't do that. And the gargoyle escapes. And so now the gargoyle can be all over the city. They don't know where it is. It can be anywhere now. And Dr. Vink's like, what have you done? You've let it free. And Reed eventually gets the gargoyle to come back to the restaurant, which is called the Wild Boar, by the way. and he traps the gargoyle in the room with him. But in order to do this, Reed has to face his worst fear, which apparently is an uncle that was extremely abusive to him, which is pretty heavy for a '90s kids horror show. But he faces this abusive uncle and basically tells him he's not afraid of him anymore, and he breaks the fear curse. And Neve Campbell comes in there and makes sure that he's all right. She gives him a big hug and happy ending, right? No, Dr. Vink shuts them both into the fear vault, locks the door, and starts laughing. And he basically says it still knows what scares you. So like they're basically trapped in there with this gargoyle slash demon that's going to feed on their fears, presumably until maybe they're gone. They're dead because Dr. Vink he needs that soup, and he's kind of being an evil guy in this one. So the last one that Dr. Vink was ever in was the Tale of Cutler's Treasure. Now, this is a special one because this was actually meant to be an hour long movie, but they divided it up on Nickelodeon into two 30-minute episodes. And it's a team up between Dr. Vink and Sardo. Now, Sardo is pretty much a good guy. Dr. Vink, not really. You can't really say he's a good guy, but in this story, he does something good, but not for goodness sake. Like he does it because there's something in it for him. Sardo is in it because he actually wants to help this kid. So anyway, there's this evil pirate who has lived with this gold for hundreds of years. He's tired of living. He's basically immortal and he wants to die. He wants to die with honor, and he wants a final battle. But his spirit is stuck to all the gold that he has acquired over all these years. And so Rush, who is the great 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 grandson of a pirate who was killed by Cutter, who is the evil pirate, um, Cutter sends his henchmen to go kidnap his younger brother, Rush's younger brother, Max. Well, Rush doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to fight a pirate, right? So eventually he goes to Sardo and asks Sardo for help. And Sardo's like, look, I really don't know how to help you, but this Dr. Vink guy does, right? So he goes to Vink, and Vink basically is telling him, like, I can help you. I know how to help you. So him and Sardo team up, and they take Max with them, and they basically go to where Cutter's treasure is. And it turns out Dr. Vink actually needs Max to fight Cutter because Dr. Vink wants that gold. And he can't get the gold unless Max defeats Cutter. So the whole time Max is fighting Cutter, Dr. Vink is just crawling around grabbing diamonds and gold and doubloons and all types of stuff. Well, eventually, Dr. Vink pretty much leaves Rush to fight this pirate on his own. And Rush decides not to kill Cutter because that's what Cutter wants. Instead, Rush saves his brother Max, and he frees he saves his brother Max, and then he collapses the cave that Cutter's in, and Cutter's like, no, like because Cutter wanted to die, but instead now Cutter is trapped in this cave forever with just nothing but his gold, and he can never leave there now. And so that was the last episode that Dr. Vink was in, and I hope y'all enjoyed this. Peace, love. I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'm going to start uploading on a regular schedule now. Like I said, I just had some personal things, going on, and I didn't feel like really doing much. But I'm back now, and but yeah, I love all of you. Peace, love. Have a great day, and until next time, see you around.